Hello Dub Nation, it's always a thrill to connect with you, especially as we're about to reveal the latest news that could shape the fate of our beloved Golden State Warriors. But before we dive into this whirlwind of information, let me make a friendly request. Show us some love by clicking the like button to strengthen our bond, and hey, if you are not subscribed yet, join our channel for a thrilling and emotional journey. Don't forget to turn on notifications to stay ahead of the game.
Golden State Warriors quietly working on a trade-friendly deal for Jonathan Kuminga. Jonathan Kuminga is now the biggest name left unresolved in the 2025 offseason. With both Josh Giddey and Cam Thomas reaching agreements with their respective teams, all eyes have turned to Kuminga, the final major domino yet to fall. According to ESPN's Brian Windhorst, the Golden State Warriors are quietly working behind the scenes on a deal that could benefit everyone involved. With just over a month remaining until the 2025-26 NBA season tips off, most teams have already locked in their rosters. But throughout the summer, the Warriors have been at a standstill with Kuminga. He's been at the center of one of the off-season's most drawn-out sagas, and now stands as the last unresolved piece, following Thomas's qualifying offer acceptance with the Brooklyn Nets and Giddey's extension with the Chicago Bulls. Windhorst reports that Golden State might be holding a key move in their back pocket. The idea? Structure a contract that not only works for them and Kuminga, but also positions him for a potential trade. In other words, a win-win-win scenario for the Warriors, Kuminga, and the team that might acquire him. As a franchise looking to extend its championship window with Stephen Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler still on board, the Warriors aren't interested in losing a valuable asset like Kuminga for nothing. They know his upside is appealing to other teams, and that's exactly what they're trying to leverage. One of the major hurdles in this situation is Kuminga's rocky relationship with head coach Steve Kerr. It's no secret that their dynamic has been strained, and that's likely to limit Kuminga's opportunities on the court. Given the current roster, especially with Green and Butler occupying forward roles, it's clear that Kuminga would have more room to grow elsewhere. A split might truly be what's best for both sides. Still, the Warriors aren't ready to just let him walk. They're hoping to strike a deal that gives them value in return, and gives Kuminga a fresh start. Windhorst explained it like this on ESPN's NBA Today. What the Warriors are trying to do here, even though they'd never come out and say it, is sign Jonathan Kuminga to a contract that makes him easier to trade, because they know he has value across the league. Kuminga, understandably, wants to be paid as someone who's already proven his worth, and that's why the two sides are stuck, especially in what's been a tight free agent market. It's very likely that Kuminga will start the season in a Warriors jersey, and there's still a real possibility for a long-term deal. But you can also understand why tensions are high. Both sides are aiming for something that works in their favor. The potential is undeniable. Even without a starring role, Kuminga has shown flashes of real potential. At just 22, he averaged 15.3 points per game last season. The talent is there, but it's being underutilized in Golden State, where his path to playing time is blocked by veterans in win-now mode. A move could unlock Kuminga's growth. But to make that happen, the Warriors want to structure a deal that ensures they get real value in return, likely involving a significant trade package. Resolving this situation would be a win for everyone. The Warriors could position themselves better for a title run, and Kuminga could finally step into the spotlight he's ready for. According to Windhorst, discussions are very much alive, and if the front office can pull this off, it could be one of the smartest moves of the offseason. If Kuminga does start the season in Golden State, it's unlikely to be a long-term solution. Sources around the league suggest that the Warriors are keeping their options open, monitoring potential trade partners that could offer the right combination of assets, whether they be draft capital, young talent, or veteran contributors to strengthen their bench. Several teams have reportedly expressed interest in Kuminga, including those in transitional phases looking to build around younger cores. His age, athleticism, and untapped upside make him a desirable target. However, trade negotiations remain complicated by the nature of his next contract. Front offices want clarity on his salary demands before committing significant pieces in return. The timing is also critical. The NBA's trade deadline in February looms large, and teams often become more aggressive as that window approaches. If the Warriors can't find a deal before the start of the season, they may use the first few months to showcase Kuminga in a more prominent role, boosting his value in the eyes of potential suitors. This, however, introduces another challenge: minutes and fit. With a roster already crowded at the forward position, particularly with Jimmy Butler now in the mix, creating consistent, high-impact opportunities for Kuminga will be difficult. There's a delicate balance between preserving team chemistry and maximizing the trade value of a player who isn't fully integrated into the long-term plans. Internally, there's also tension regarding player development versus championship urgency. Steve Kerr has historically leaned on veterans during high-stakes moments, and while Kuminga has shown flashes of promise, he hasn't yet earned Kerr's full trust in late-game or playoff situations. This dynamic, according to team insiders, has fueled some of the frustration behind the scenes. From Kuminga's perspective, the uncertainty is equally frustrating. Entering what could be a contract year, he wants to prove he can be more than a rotational player. He believes, and many around the league agree, that he's capable of being a starter or even a primary scorer on a rebuilding or mid-tier team. Staying in Golden State without a clear path to minutes or an extension could hurt his long-term trajectory, both professionally and financially. In terms of locker room dynamics, sources suggest that Kuminga has remained professional and focused, but there's a growing sense that both he and the organization know the situation isn't sustainable. He's not demanding a trade, at least not publicly, but the writing may be on the wall. Meanwhile, the Warriors front office, led by Mike Dunleavy Jr., is walking a fine line. The team is committed to giving Curry and company another shot at contention, but it also knows that failing to get something in return for Kuminga would be a missed opportunity, especially as the luxury tax and new CBA rules continue to restrict roster flexibility. Ultimately, this is a high-stakes puzzle with limited time to solve. Golden State wants to retain leverage in any future deal, Kuminga wants clarity on his role and future, and rival teams are watching closely, waiting to see whether the Warriors will fold, push forward, or find a middle ground. For now, Kuminga remains in limbo, a talented young forward caught between a championship team's short-term priorities and the long-term value he clearly holds in the modern NBA. Kendrick Perkins warns of locker room turbulence if Warriors keep Jonathan Kuminga on $7.9 million deal. The Golden State Warriors are still navigating the drawn-out saga surrounding Jonathan Kuminga, a storyline that has quietly dominated their 2025 offseason. While a resolution may still be in the works, former NBA champion and current ESPN analyst Kendrick Perkins has a clear warning for the organization. Keeping Kuminga could lead to serious locker room issues. Kuminga has shown flashes of star potential throughout his 4 seasons in Golden State. But despite his growth and raw talent, he's never been given consistent opportunities under head coach Steve Kerr. That lack of trust and defined role has led Kuminga to explore a way out, though, as a restricted free agent, his future remains in the hands of the Warriors unless another team makes a significant move. Golden State isn't eager to let him walk for nothing. They recognize the value he brings, especially at just 22 years old, but they've made it clear he's not seen as part of their long-term blueprint. With that, trade talks and speculation have swirled all summer, particularly around the Sacramento Kings, who were rumored to be interested before reports dismissed any real progress. Perkins, keeping Kuminga could disrupt team chemistry. The Warriors are one of the most successful franchises of the 21st century, but even dynasties have internal challenges. The team is no stranger to tension in the locker room, most notably the infamous incident where Draymond Green punched Jordan Poole, an event that deeply affected team dynamics following their 2022 title run. While the current environment isn't nearly as volatile, Perkins believes bringing Kuminga back on a $7.9 million deal could reignite internal friction, especially if he feels undervalued or boxed into a limited role again. Speaking on ESPN's NBA Today, Perkins didn't hold back. They don't want you. They don't value you, because if they did, you wouldn't be going through this. And it started last season. Steve Kerr showed how he really felt when Kuminga was taken out of the rotation, said Perkins. If you bring him back at $7.9 million, it's going to cause turbulence in that locker room. He's going to play selfish basketball. And honestly, I can't blame him, because I understand he's trying to get paid. Perkins highlighted the disconnect between the Warriors' championship-minded veterans and a young player with individual goals. While Curry, Green, and Butler are focused on legacy and winning now, Kuminga is entering a critical point in his career where proving his worth, statistically and financially, becomes the priority. You're going to have 3 future Hall of Famers leading your locker room preaching selfless basketball, and then you have a young guy playing to get noticed. That's where the friction starts, Perkins added. A trade could be best for everyone. Perkins makes a strong case. It may be time for both sides to move on. While the Warriors have reportedly explored trade options, including talks with the Kings, nothing has materialized yet. With just over a month until the 2025-26 season tips off, Kuminga remains on the roster, and the tension around his situation continues to simmer. Keeping him without a clear role, or worse, placing him back in a limited rotation, risks both on-court chemistry and off-court cohesion. Yet the Warriors also can't afford to lose him for little return, especially given how few assets they have left to maneuver with under the league's tightened financial structure. Kuminga's value is still very real. At 22, he's already had multiple seasons averaging over 15 points per game, and that's without a consistent starting role. The belief around the league is that he could thrive in a system that gives him more freedom, touches, and responsibility. In the right environment, his numbers could climb, and his impact could be more fully realized. Golden State is trying to thread a difficult needle, extracting value from a player they've underutilized, while avoiding the kind of internal issues that could derail a veteran team's title push. The clock is ticking. Whether through a sign-and-trade or a more creative solution, the Warriors need to act, not just for Kuminga's future, but to protect their own. At this stage, it's clear that the Warriors are caught between two competing realities. On one hand, they want to remain competitive while maximizing the final years of Stephen Curry's prime. On the other, they're trying to navigate a new era of the NBA, one shaped by harsher luxury tax penalties, rigid roster construction rules, and increasing pressure to develop younger talent internally. The Kuminga situation underscores just how difficult that balancing act has become. Internally, there's a recognition that if Kuminga stays, especially on a team-friendly $7.9 million deal, it sends a mixed message. For a young player who has spent years proving himself in flashes, such a contract without an expanded role could be seen as a step backward. For the veterans, it could be viewed as a distraction, especially if Kuminga starts playing with personal goals in mind rather than fitting into the system. That's where the tension lies. It's not just about the money, one league source close to the situation said. It's about trust, opportunity, and clarity. Kuminga wants to feel like he's part of a plan, and right now, that plan doesn't exist in Golden State. There's also the question of how the coaching staff will handle the situation if no trade happens before the season begins. Will Steve Kerr adjust the rotation to give Kuminga more meaningful minutes? Or will he stick to his veteran-heavy lineups, potentially sidelining a player who could be crucial in maintaining trade value? Either path comes with risk. If Kerr limits Kuminga's role, it could not only damage morale but also hurt any potential return in a future trade. On the other hand, if Kuminga is given minutes purely to showcase him, and plays outside the team's structure, that could damage chemistry and derail early season momentum. Several rival executives are reportedly watching the situation closely, waiting for the Warriors to blink. Some believe the organization may be forced to make a deal closer to the trade deadline, when teams become more aggressive and willing to overpay for upside. Ripple effects on the Warriors' identity. Beyond just this one player, how the Warriors handle Kuminga could send a broader message about the team's culture and priorities. Golden State has long been praised for its continuity and championship ethos, but the franchise is now entering a transition period. Klay Thompson is gone. Draymond Green is aging. Jimmy Butler, while still productive, is nearing the tail end of his peak years. And Curry, despite his brilliance, can't carry the full weight forever. Letting a player like Kuminga walk, or allowing the situation to linger unresolved, raises tough questions. Are the Warriors still capable of developing young stars? Can they build for the future while still competing in the present? And perhaps most importantly, what message does this send to the next generation of talent? Kuminga's handling will likely influence how future young players and their agents view Golden State as a destination. What comes next? For now, both sides appear locked in a holding pattern. The Warriors are unlikely to release Kuminga without compensation, and no team has yet stepped up with the kind of offer they're looking for. Meanwhile, Kuminga and his camp are waiting, hoping either for a change in role or a relocation that gives him the chance to grow. Training camp will only amplify the stakes. If Kuminga is still on the roster by then, all eyes will be on how he's used, how he responds, and whether the tension hinted at by Kendrick Perkins begins to surface in more visible ways. Golden State still has time, but not much. If they fail to act, they may not just lose a player. They might fracture the cohesion of a team that for a decade was defined by its unity. The next move could define more than Kuminga's future. It might define the Warriors' identity going forward. Warriors face warning from former NBA player over Jonathan Kuminga situation. As the Golden State Warriors prepare for a new season, there's one issue they can't ignore, and it's sitting right in their locker room. Former NBA big man Kendrick Perkins believes the unresolved situation with Jonathan Kuminga isn't just a minor distraction. In his eyes, it has the potential to create real problems, not just for the Warriors, but for the entire Western Conference. Despite Golden State's desire to keep things drama-free heading into 2025-26, Kuminga's contract stalemate is casting a long shadow over the team. Perkins didn't mince words about the impact it could have. "This is going to affect the locker room, a locker room that's trying to compete for a championship," Perkins said on ESPN's NBA Today. "They don't want you. They don't value you. If they did, you wouldn't be going through this. It started last season." Perkins was referring to Kuminga's exclusion from the rotation during key moments, notably during the play-in tournament and the first-round series against the Rockets. That decision, he argued, spoke volumes about where head coach Steve Kerr stands on Kuminga's role. And there's another layer: front office dynamics. While Mike Dunleavy Jr. now leads the Warriors' basketball operations, Kuminga wasn't his pick. He was drafted by Bob Myers in 2021 with a 7th overall pick after skipping college and joining the G League Ignite program. That detail, while subtle, matters, because in the NBA, front office ties often shape opportunity. A career of flashes, but no clear path. Kuminga played 70 games in his rookie year and appeared in 16 playoff contests during the Warriors' 2022 title run, averaging 5.2 points in limited minutes. Over 4 seasons, he's logged 258 games, including 48 starts, 46 of which came in 2023-24. However, that upward trend didn't last. Last season, he started just 10 games. Still, when on the court, Kuminga produced. He averaged 15.3 points in 24.3 minutes per game, shooting 45% from the field, along with 4.6 rebounds and 2.2 assists. Solid numbers for a 22-year-old, and enough to suggest he has real value, especially as he enters a contract year. That's exactly why Perkins is sounding the alarm. If you bring him back at $7.9 million, it's going to cause problems, Perkins warned. He's going to go out there and play for himself. And honestly, I can't blame him. He's trying to get paid. Perkins' concern isn't just about stats or playing time, it's about chemistry. He sees a dangerous clash of priorities, a young player chasing his first major payday, and a veteran core focused entirely on winning now. It's a collision course. At the end of the day, you've got one guy playing with a personal agenda, and a team led by 3 veterans, probably 3 future Hall of Famers, who preach unselfish, winning basketball. That's where the real issue is. What's at stake? Perkins isn't saying Kuminga is a bad player, far from it. In fact, he's making the case that Kuminga's real value might only shine outside of Golden State, where he could be unleashed in a system built around youth and development. But if the Warriors keep him, don't clarify his role, and continue to treat him as a trade chip instead of a foundational piece, they risk more than just locker room tension. They risk undermining the culture that's been central to their success for the past decade. Perkins' message is simple: you can't have it both ways. Either commit to Kuminga and find a way to integrate him, or move him somewhere he can grow. But leaving him in limbo, especially on a lowball deal, only invites problems. And as the season draws near, the Warriors will have to make a decision. Because unresolved tension like this doesn't stay quiet for long. A tipping point for the Warriors' culture. For years, the Golden State Warriors were the standard of organizational stability, a team built on trust, player development, and unselfish basketball. But the handling of Jonathan Kuminga raises legitimate questions about whether that culture is beginning to fray. Multiple sources around the league have noted the growing tension between the team's win-now mentality and its inconsistent commitment to young talent. Kuminga isn't the first player to experience this. Former lottery pick James Wiseman went through a similarly confusing development path before being traded. But unlike Wiseman, Kuminga has shown steady production, flashes of star-level ability, and a hunger to take the next step. The concern now is whether the Warriors' internal hierarchy can withstand another season of misalignment. Veterans like Stephen Curry and Draymond Green are known for their leadership, but they've also made it clear, publicly and privately, that the window for competing at the highest level is closing. The addition of Jimmy Butler further reinforces that urgency. In this context, giving minutes to a young player focused on individual performance, even for understandable reasons, could disrupt the locker room's balance. Some around the league believe the locker room would remain professional, but not necessarily harmonious. If Kuminga feels forced into a role he doesn't want, or if he senses the organization has already moved on from him mentally, the tension will eventually spill over, whether in the form of inconsistent effort, strained interactions with the coaching staff, or a media distraction the team can't afford. The clock is ticking. From a business standpoint, the Warriors are also running out of time. With the 2025-26 season approaching and the February trade deadline already in view, the front office must make a strategic decision: extend Kuminga, trade him, or risk losing him for little to no return. Several teams, including the Oklahoma City Thunder, Toronto Raptors, and Utah Jazz, have reportedly expressed interest in acquiring Kuminga. These are franchises in various stages of rebuilding or retooling, and they see in Kuminga a potential foundational piece. However, none of those teams are willing to overpay without clarity on his future role or contract demands. Golden State, meanwhile, is walking a financial tightrope. The new collective bargaining agreement has tightened restrictions on high-spending teams, reducing flexibility and increasing the penalties for carrying redundant salaries. Re-signing Kuminga without knowing whether he fits long-term is a risk, but letting him walk or holding him too long could be even more costly. What comes next? If Kuminga begins the season on the roster, the spotlight will be intense. Every minute he plays, or doesn't play, will be scrutinized. Every comment from Steve Kerr or Mike Dunleavy Jr. will be parsed for hidden meaning. Every performance, whether productive or not, will fuel speculation about his trade value. There's also the possibility that Kuminga himself may speak out, especially if the situation remains unresolved well into the season. While he's been largely professional throughout the process, the pressure of playing for a contract, combined with unclear support from the franchise, could lead to growing frustration. In the end, Kendrick Perkins' warning isn't just about one player. It's about the future of the Warriors' identity. If Golden State continues to mishandle this situation, it could deter other young players from trusting the franchise with their development. It could also create subtle, but powerful divisions within a locker room that can't afford anything less than total alignment. The Warriors may still see themselves as contenders. But to stay there, they'll need to make a choice, and soon. Do they move forward with Jonathan Kuminga as a part of the core? Or do they give him the fresh start he clearly wants, and may ultimately need? Time will tell. But silence and hesitation could prove to be the most damaging decision of all. NBA Insider reveals timeline for potential Jonathan Kuminga deal with Warriors. The Golden State Warriors might be inching closer to striking a deal with forward Jonathan Kuminga. Negotiations have been dragging on throughout the entire 2025 NBA offseason, and while fans are eager for a resolution, things have remained at a frustrating standstill, until now. According to reports, the Warriors' best offer so far has been a 2-year, $45 million deal, with a team option in the second year. But that proposal falls well short of what Kuminga is aiming for. The 22-year-old rising star is reportedly seeking a long-term deal closer to $30 million annually, or at the very least, a short-term contract with a player option in year 2. For now, the most likely scenario seems to be Kuminga accepting the $7.9 million qualifying offer and playing out the season before testing the market again. Despite some trade buzz earlier in the offseason, expectations are that Kuminga will still suit up in a Warriors jersey when the season tips off. The real question is, under what contract? Where do things stand? NBA insider Jake Fisher recently shared an update via the Stein line, revealing that talks between the two sides have stalled, but a breakthrough may be on the horizon. Sources say there's been little meaningful dialogue since the Warriors floated a 2-year, $45 million structure that includes a team option in year 2 and strips Kuminga of trade consent in year 1. Fisher reported. However, he added, there's a growing sense from both camps that some real movement could finally happen next week. With training camp just under 3 weeks away and an October 1st deadline for Kuminga to accept the qualifying offer, the clock is ticking. Ideally, both sides would like to avoid walking into camp with this unresolved, making next week a critical window for progress. The Josh Giddey factor. One reason the Warriors' offer isn't gaining traction? Look no further than Josh Giddey. The restricted free agent just secured a 4-year, $100 million deal with the Chicago Bulls, a number that's raised eyebrows in Kuminga's camp. Given Giddey's new deal in Chicago, it's easy to see why Kuminga's team isn't exactly thrilled with Golden State's current offer, Fisher wrote. If the Warriors were willing to drop the team option, maybe there'd be some traction. But even then, their proposal averages under $25 million per year. This standoff has become one of the more intriguing contract storylines of the offseason. For Warriors fans, and Kuminga himself, the hope is that both sides can find common ground soon. With a talented young core and championship aspirations, keeping Kuminga happy and committed could be key to Golden State's next chapter. As the negotiation drags on, the contract stalemate between Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors has become a key storyline of the offseason, not just because of the player involved, but because of what it reveals about the franchise's priorities and future direction. Growing tension and market shifts. One of the biggest shifts in recent weeks has been the changing market for young, ascending talent. When a player like Josh Giddey secures a $100 million deal over 4 years, it naturally reshapes expectations across the league. For Kuminga, it only reinforces the belief that he deserves significantly more than the Warriors' current offer, both in annual salary and long-term security. From Kuminga's perspective, settling for a deal that includes a team option and no trade protections feels like a step backward. He's coming off a breakout year where he showed real growth as a scorer, defender, and playmaker, and he wants a deal that reflects that evolution. The qualifying offer option. If an agreement isn't reached soon, Kuminga may take the most direct route available, accepting the $7.9 million qualifying offer. Doing so would allow him to become an unrestricted free agent next summer, giving him full control over his future. However, that path comes with risks. Any injury or decline in performance this season could affect his next contract significantly. Still, the qualifying offer might be more appealing than being locked into a short-term deal with limited flexibility and no guarantees beyond this year. Trade scenarios still unlikely. While there has been speculation about possible sign-and-trade options, no real traction has been reported. The Warriors appear unwilling to part with Kuminga unless they receive a high-value return, and other teams may be hesitant to invest heavily without clarity on Kuminga's contract expectations. This leaves both sides in a delicate position. The Warriors don't want to lose a promising young forward for nothing, but Kuminga doesn't seem willing to accept terms that don't reflect his rising status. Impact on team planning. This unresolved contract situation is also having ripple effects across the organization. The Warriors' front office can't fully plan their roster or salary cap strategy until Kuminga's status is settled. It's not just about one player, it's about financial flexibility, trade assets, and internal development paths. At the same time, uncertainty around Kuminga's role and future can affect team dynamics. Entering training camp without clarity may lead to distractions or unnecessary tension between the player, teammates, and coaching staff. What comes next? With training camp less than 3 weeks away and the October 1st deadline approaching quickly, both sides are running out of time to find common ground. Several paths remain on the table. Agreeing on a restructured deal, possibly a compromise that removes the team option or adjusts the financial terms to better align with Kuminga's expectations. Accepting the qualifying offer and betting on a strong season to boost his value in unrestricted free agency. Stalling into the season without a new deal, risking distractions and possibly damaging both the team's momentum and Kuminga's market value. This situation has become a high-stakes moment for both player and team. How it plays out will not only affect Kuminga's career trajectory, it could also shape the Warriors' future as they transition from one era to the next.